Today we're gonna make maple mashed sweet potatoes. It is super silky smooth and extra rich from butter and creme fraiche and the perfect amount of maple to make them just a touch sweet. The perfect side dish for steak or venison or other rich game meats, or Thanksgiving, perfect side. Let's get into it. So sweet potato puree starts with the usual suspects, sweet potatoes. My grocery store had giant sweet potatoes this week, so that's what we're gonna cook. I am going to roast these in the oven. You could make them in the microwave. You could also boil them on the stove, but if you're gonna do that, peel them and then cut them into like manageable sized pieces and then boil them. I have preheated my oven to 400 degrees. If you're already baking something in there and you want to use a different degree, that's cool, you do that. Go ahead and give them a poke. If they're dirty, clean them. No, we're gonna peel the skin once that, it's been roasted, but you still, you don't wanna have like dirt about. Let's give them some nice pokes. All right, so we are going to cover them because they're gonna take a minute. I'm gonna cover them with foil and then just let them roast, and it'll probably take, for this size, wow, 45 minutes, so we're in it. All right, so our sweet potatoes are out. They've cooled just enough to handle, and they baked about like an hour and a half almost, but they were obviously very large. So you can see that they've kind of started to caramelize. Some of the sugars have kind of come out, and like they look like a rich caramel, and like that's the really good flavor that we want. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel those. You want to make sure that they're cool enough to touch. Oh yeah, these are steamy. I don't want to let them cool completely because I do want the puree to process smooth, but then also I want to get the butter to kind of incorporate into it and melt and become homogeneous. And if you let it cool too much, you can't really do that in one step. Oof, that's warm. All right. Steamy. So you could mash this by hand, you could put it in a food processor, whatever tool you'd like to. I'm going to use a ricer because I like to get that kind of fine, puree, and the only way to do that is with a ricer. So here we are. Yep. It's the best way to get all of those like small strings, that are in sweet potatoes, is with this. Now, if you'd like to go ahead and start adding your butter while it's sitting in there, I would suggest you do that. I have it like all ready just so the hot sweet potatoes hit the butter. I feel like my ricer has seen better days. I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of the butter while my hands are nasty. I'm gonna push that down there and then let it kind of start melting itself. And I'm gonna go clean my hands. All right, and now we have somehow, in any way, shape, or form you see fit, mashed our sweet potatoes, and we're gonna add our butter while it's still hot so that it all melts in there and it's nice. At this point, I will also I'll start adding a little bit of salt, just start salting it, just a little bit at a time, and that way you don't end up with an overly salty mix. But if you salt it while it's hot, it helps. Now, I am going to make this super silky smooth, almost like a palm puree. So I'm going to pass this through a chinois, or very, very fine mesh sieve. And so I'm not stressed totally about the, lumpiness of it at this moment, because the ricer is imperfect, clearly. But so is a food mill, and you will not get that beautiful silky smooth puree without passing it through some sort of very fine sieve. But you are going to want to add a little bit of more liquids before we do that. All right, so we've already added some butter, and I'm going to add some maple syrup. Not all of it at once, and this really depends on your taste. If you want a sweeter mashed sweet potato puree, then obviously you're going to add a little bit more maple syrup. And if you want less sweet, then you can back off on it, or even just use maple extract. And then I am going to finish with the creme fraiche, and I'm using creme fraiche instead of heavy cream like you would kind of in mashed potatoes, because I just want that extra richness that comes from the creme fraiche. You can also use sour cream. You'll get a little bit of that tang. I don't think sour cream would be quite as nice. You might want to go like cream cheese mixture with a little milk or cream, but you know, because it's not a one-to-one taste ratio. All right, so while this is still warm, I'm going to pass this through a sieve without further ado before it cools, and then I am in a world of pain. All right, so I'm going to do this a little bit at a time with, this is my chinois fine mesh sieve, and a ladle. You could use a spoon, but a ladle does make it easier. And I'm just going to start with a bit. You do want to work quickly because it is so much easier to do while it's hot. It's hard when it's cold, just know. So you're just going to force it through. Takes a little elbow grease to do this, but we got this. It's one of those things that's worth it, I promise. So basically you're going to get to the kind of the end of the stuff in the center, and you're going to make a judgment call. You're like, is it about as good as it's going to get? If it looks kind of thick, it sticks to the spoon, it's mostly strands. The answer is yes. And your further ROI is going to be low. My bankers out there, see you. And you're left with like this silky smooth puree. Do you see that? We did that. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a taste, make sure that it, you know, we're happy with the level of maple, we're happy with the level of salt. I want a little bit more sweetness. And then we're going to finish it with the creme fraiche. Now this can be to your taste as well, but I like the extra richness that it gives. Now obviously there's not a controlled amount of potatoes that passes through the sieve or passes through the ricer, so you know you're going to end up with about 4 cups of puree, but it really depends on the day, the potatoes, you. Just kidding. I feel like there's like the amount of butter and stuff that I want in my puree, and then there's the acceptable amount. Just kidding. Give it one final taste. Aw, shoot. That's good. And that's it. And now you have made maple sweet potato puree. Super silky smooth with like a little bit of sweetness. It's time to try. I mean, you saw me try it earlier, so I know what it tastes like, but like, you know, gotta live a little. Like a little reward for all the elbow grease I put in there. Oh, it's so silky smooth and like luscious from the butter and a little bit of extra fat from the creme fraiche, but still rich and creamy with like a hint of sweetness. Oh my gosh, it's divine. Ah.